I'm Franz Sedelmayer. I'm the author of Welcome to Putingrad. The book is essentially telling a little bit about my story, how I got to Russia, and what I found in Russia, and also how it developed over the last 30 years. I come out of a family business that was in specialized trucks and cars. We provided equipment and vehicles for the military and for the police around the world. And when I started my own program, that is the infrastructure I relied on initially before I went to Russia. So that was my connection. But the actual security work and the special operations work, that is something that I had developed. I came out of German Airborne, and I knew I'm not going to have much of a career in the German Armed Forces, simply because there was nothing going on in the 80s. We were all waiting for the Russians to come invade us. It never happened, of course. But I knew, I could make a career in there, but I would never see any action. So I decided to get into the industry and become an equipment supplier and become a facilitator for training and also certain services. I started out, my first company started out, as a matter of fact, out of Munich and out of St. Louis, and we were providing special operations equipment around the world. And my specialty was to go around and procure and also develop and sometimes manufacture special operations equipment, and to put everything in one big catalog, and we could outfill a complete SWAT team. This is in the late 80s, and no one did that at the time. And then '89, I got invited to come to Russia and to see the capabilities of the Leningrad Police Department, which later became St. Petersburg. And when I came over there, I saw that the whole place was completely derelict, not only as a country, but also as far as law enforcement capabilities were concerned. And I knew there's a huge market opening up, so I expanded from counter-terrorist equipment all the way to standard law enforcement equipment. And of course, we also took care of local SWAT teams, which are not to be mistaken with teams that were created in the West simply for the purpose of hostage rescue, to preserve life. Their idea of special operations was to go and kill people, predominantly. It was very much a military type scenario, but you would find that thinking all throughout the law enforcement community. Even the intelligence services, like the KGB, which later became the FSB, had their own SWAT teams, their own Spetsnaz outfits, but they were not designed to take care of missions to preserve life. They followed a military plan and had methods that was there to neutralize an enemy, but not to rescue innocent people. So our purpose in that environment became to introduce Western-style law enforcement and also do some special work with these teams. And that's how I met Vladimir Putin. And when we founded the Grad SWAT team in St. Petersburg in 1993, already after 2 weeks, they saw their first action. This was the White House crisis, and they actually managed to arrest the snipers who shot innocent people around the Moscow Duma, the parliament. And when these guys fled, they fled to the city of St. Petersburg, and the SWAT team found them and arrested them without killing anyone. Well, I saw a need to explain a little bit about Russia and what happened the last 30 years. I spent time in Russia from 1989 to 1996 and became friendly at one time with Vladimir Putin, who was then the deputy mayor of St. Petersburg. And we had pretty good working relationship together. And in '96, my security company that I had founded together with the local police department there got nationalized by President Boris Yeltsin. They sort of took my company, including the general manager, and they kept everybody on the payroll, took over my equipment, my facility, and the company is still in operation today. And I had to go and seek arbitration to get my money back for my investment. And Mr. Putin, who I was working with very closely, ended up on the other side, and he took a Kremlin job and then eventually moved on to become the head of the FSB, the successor of the KGB, then became prime minister, and eventually became president of Russia. After being expropriated in Russia, I found a way to take him to court. I took him to private arbitration in Sweden. And I was the first person to win an arbitration award under an investment treaty against Russia. And then I became the first person to actually collect on the award, because they have lost many other cases, but they never paid anybody. They always claimed sovereign immunity. So once we got our last check, so to speak, I decided I think I want to sit down and write a book about Russia, about Russia's time, outgoing time under Yeltsin, and then Vladimir Putin, which covers roughly about 30 years. Vladimir Putin foremost is a guy, and he used to be a guy like us, right up our avenue. He was a reliable person to deal with in my days in St. Petersburg. I mean, he was one of the guys who was a handshake guy. You know, we agreed on something with him, it would be done. And that man, unfortunately, has changed into a completely different person who is interested in power, who is interested in controlling a situation. He's naturally afraid that someone will hold him to account if he ever steps down. He is avoiding to relinquish power with all possible methods. He has created now a Rosguardia, which is sort of a conglomerate of armed forces made up by law enforcement, 435,000 people strong. They have their own ships, helicopters, and fighting jets, and cargo airplanes. And their sole mission is to keep Vladimir Putin in power. And that's the guys you see running around Moscow, beating up on demonstrators and arresting them. So he sort of created his own little Praetorian Guard there, and it's not little, of course. But these people will do anything to keep him in power, and he's basically their commander-in-chief. There's only one person below him that is the acting general commanding these troops, and he's 100% loyalist. So Vladimir Putin is not in a position where he feels comfortable. He has to hold on to power, and he can no longer do it but just by talking. He actually needs to show action. So we can expect a lot more violence to come in the next years. And I thought it would be interesting for people to understand what Russia is about. And I had read a different book by a good friend of mine now by the name of John Weisman, who is a 7 times bestseller of the New York Times list. And I called John and said, my name is Franz Sedelmayer, and I'd like to write a book about my time in Russia. And he lived in Pensacola, so I sent him some stuff, and he looked at it. He developed an interest, so I flew in. We sat down, and we wrote the book in 6 months, got it printed up, got it into audio, and also into an electronic book, and put it on the market. It's actually available now on Amazon. And John has written numerous bestsellers, including KBL, Kill Bin Laden, The Rogue Warrior, which of course deals with Dick Marcinko's story, and SEAL Team 6. And he's a wonderful person to work with. He's very knowledgeable in the area, and we also have the same sense of humor, and I hope that reflects in the book. So what the book does, it not only describes my story, but it also describes what Russia is about, how the system works, what the Russian people are about, what makes them, what breaks them, how history has changed Russia since the wall came down, what can we expect of Russia in the future, how long is Vladimir Putin going to be there, why is he there, why are the Russians doing what they're doing to us right now, why is it that they cannot coexist with us peacefully, cooperate with us like many other countries do. What is the bug? And the bug is very simple. It's all centered in money. It's centered in corruption. And corruption makes people do things they otherwise would not dream of doing.